Perfect. So good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's session on this lovely wintry day. Thank you for taking the time to join us. Before we start, I would like to acknowledge that the land we identify as RTO9 is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Huron-Wendat peoples. RTO9 will honor and respect the land, the people, and the treaties. We are extremely thankful for the original tour guides of these lands and all that they have shared. All those that reside, work, and play on these lands are treaty people. We must honor the treaties in a mutually beneficial and equitable manner. With 1 in 5 Indigenous people in Canada living in Ontario, we believe working together in a mutually beneficial manner will help all Ontarians prosper through the joint development of the tourism industry. As an ally to Indigenous people and a partner of Indigenous Tourism Ontario, RTO9 will commit to improving the socioeconomic conditions of Indigenous people through tourism by creating space for Indigenous people to tell their stories on their terms. Now, a couple of housekeeping notes before we get started. First, if you didn't hear, this workshop is being recorded and it will be available for viewing after today's session on the RTO9 website, which is just rto9.ca. There will be a question period and Karine will ask for some engagement throughout. So if you have any questions or anything, feel free to pop them in the Q&A box, which can be done anonymously if you prefer, or jump into the chat, answer Karine's questions as they come up. After the session today, you'll also receive an email that just will have a quick 2-minute survey link. If you're able to spare some time to review the workshop, that would be so appreciated. And now without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to our lovely facilitator this morning from Mellow Brew Marketing in Cornwall, which is Karine. Good morning, Karine.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. I'm just going to get set up here where I share my presentation with you. Just give me a quick moment. I think you can all see this now.
You're all good to go.
And you know I need my chat box, so give me a quick second. I refuse to do this alone. You're all going to be here with me, I hope. I always look to engage all of you the way these webinars work with Zoom. I can't see your faces, but it's just nice to know that you are there. So in the chat box, just know we're going to try to keep that alive today with this conversation about social media customer service and engagement and how we can transform these interactions and build relationships online. So thank you so much, all of the good mornings in the chat. I love this conversation because I feel like it's just it's this very basic thing that is often overlooked when we think of our social tools and how we use them. And it is such an easy way to connect with your customers, potential customers, and your audience and the people that are really out there, sharing the news of your business or your organization. And it's important to acknowledge everything that is happening in your sphere online. And often it's overlooked because there's a million different reasons. So those are the things we're going to look at today. I'd love to see in the chat right now how many of you are using social media strategies for your customer service. I'd love to see in the comments if you can let me know how many of you are already taking the time to implement strategies, take advantage of the tools available, and using it to connect with your customers on some level. Seeing a response, I am. It is absolutely good where the hands are going up. That's great. The dialogue that I have had with Meg about these presentations, we're doing introductory conversations about all the sessions that we've done so far in the last, it's been 4 or 5 months now. We've done a different one every month. And all of this is kind of at a starting point, but I think we forget the fundamentals sometimes. So if some of this feels like it's not advanced enough for you, maybe hopefully today I'm giving you some exercises that you can tackle to make sure that maybe you can elevate your customer service game online. So a lot of people saying they're already doing these things. Some of you are saying, no, that's why you're here. Amazing. We're going to talk about, this is not about the tools today. It's not about how to implement, features. There are so many features within the tools. So we're not talking about that so much today, but we are talking a lot about, but we're going to jump into it. I'm going to show you all. But first, before we get going, my name is Kagan Faltine, business and brand strategist and owner of Mellow Brew Marketing. I'm also the founder and author of The Work Vacay, which is an escape to work on your business. I have a lot going on, but all these things are all tied to my love for business and small business. I've been working with entrepreneurs and business owners for nearly 15 years. So everything that I'm sharing with you comes from a place of experience, a place of, having these sessions and these talks with my clients and experiencing everything that they have over the years. And there have been a lot of ups and downs over the last 15 years, but also even over the weekend, lots of stuff happening in the business world. So it's a space that I'm very involved in and that I love so much because I truly believe that, the people who risk it all and the people who have, businesses in our community and they really make them unique and they really add so much value to us. And my work has always been rooted in that. And so I always appreciate discussions around that and really approach it that way when I have discussions like we're having today. So, before we jump in, these are just some stats that I think are important to know, and just things to kind of make you reflect a little bit about what social media customer service can really look like. So 76% of consumers value how quickly a brand responds to their needs online. And nearly 70% expect a response within 24 hours or less. So this is from Sprout Social. Sprout Social is a tool, a very highly regarded tool for social media management. So I do trust the details that they're sharing here. Does this resonate with all of you here? Do you feel that do these align? Do you believe this even as a consumer? Do you expect a response from someone in 24 hours or less? Are you okay if a business takes longer to respond to you? What's your thought on these numbers? I'd love to see in the chat how you feel about it. Help Scout also says that 65% of customers have changed to a different brand because of a poor experience. And when we say brand, if you're here from an organization today, the same applies. If you are, people have an expectation as an organization that you will be responding in a timely manner. So all of this still applies. So expect 1 to 2 days, 24-hour minimum. For the most part, yes. So there are some automatic responses set, so that's good. I hear customers appreciate quick responses that I give. Yes. I know that if you're, and maybe we can take a little poll in the chat again. How many of you are solopreneurs? You work for yourself completely. How many of you here are from an organization? It'll also help me kind of just tailor a little bit more this discussion because I do believe that if you work by yourself and you're trying to offer customer service on social media, you may not be able to do that, as quickly or as efficiently as someone else. I'm going to open my chat because you're very active. Thank you for that. 24-hour response. I'm by myself and organizations, municipality, organization, small business team of 3. Okay, so we have a little bit of a mix of everything here, so that's good. So yeah, if you're by yourself, if you're on your own or a very, very small team, some of these numbers could, be triggering to know that you have to hurry up and respond to customers. And I'm not sharing these stats to be scary. It's really just as a way of understanding what the expectation is now. The reality is that everyone is walking around with a device in their hands and they're all looking for quick answers. And it can be the difference today. And I hear this a lot from my customers and my clients that, they do tend to try to respond as quickly as possible because it could be the difference between a sale or booking a client or not. So they do, they are a little bit more rapid in that sense. Now, if you're an organization or you're running part of some type of again, organization, sorry, it might be a little bit different. You might work within certain hours. You might be open from 9 to 5 or working 9 to 5 and after hours. That's not a priority because you're not connected to your work. You don't work after hours. So things to consider in that aspect is to make sure that at least people are heard of. And again, there's a lot of opportunity. I heard in the text here, automated tools that allow for automatic responses. Those things are all super helpful. And we're going to dive into a little bit of an approach. And really today, the engaging on how we do customer service online and some of the best practices, because you'd think after all these years, it would be pretty straightforward, but we're still seeing a lot of challenges in the space of how do we react and how do we connect with people online when they're experiencing different things with our businesses and our organizations. So, of course, great service equals loyalty and trust, and we all know that. I'm sure that's how you shop. It's how you take an approach to how where you give your dollars. It is important to have great service and loyalty and trust. However, it can't come to the expense of your sanity. Great service is relative to your industry, what it is that you're doing, and so I always encourage people to make a plan that's right for them. And hopefully, by the end of this, you have an idea of some key areas that you can, put a little bit of an extra attention. So today, here's how we're going to fill your cup. We're going to talk about an effective communication strategy. So how can you effectively communicate with people who connect with you online? How to handle negative feedback. Again, I always I feel like after all these years, it should be a no-brainer how these things are tackled. But there are new people coming into the space every day, and we hear it over and over again, and especially in organizations. My staff is always coming to me like, how do I handle this? What do I do? Having plans in place and having an idea of what the best practices are for that. We're going to cover the negative stuff because there's a lot of that online, unfortunately, these days. There's a lot of this feedback that we need to manage. And finally, engagement strategies. So, how do we engage? Our audiences that way. And I'm going to give you an exercise at the end that's going to allow you to, again, assess where you're at with your customer service online, and we'll kind of go from there. So I'm just going to move my chat here. Thank you for being lively in there. I appreciate it. All right. So the best practices for social media services where we're going to start. So we're going to start with the 3 C's of great service. So again, these might not be new concepts to you, but these are very important, especially in the world of social media. Social media online is very public. It's out there. If you are giving one response to one person, you're going to want to give it to another. If there are discrepancies in that, people will probably make a comment. They will acknowledge that you said one thing over another. So, a lot of clarity, a lot of consistency, and a lot of compassion. So, to be clear and direct, you avoid jargon, you avoid all this, the words that your customers aren't going to understand. You want to be quick and easy answers all the time. When I see businesses or organizations respond with paragraphs trying to justify their answer, it usually opens up to just a whirlwind of challenges. Instead, we keep that clear and concise, and we don't overdo it. If we want to have lengthier conversations, we take those things offline, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. I'm seeing the PowerPoint be emailed to the group, and I can get this to Meg after, and then you'll all have access, and she can make it accessible to you. So yes, when we're talking about consistency, we want to keep your brand's tone and style across on all the same platforms. So we've done exercises in this in the past. So if you haven't seen those workshops that we've done together already, having your brand's tone, you're going to want to keep that everywhere, and the same way in your customer service. So if you have a more playful voice, sure, you might be able to be a little bit playful with your customer service, but we're going to read the room and we're going to understand what we're addressing in the comments before we do that. So we always want to make our audience feel like they're talking to the same person online, over the phone. We want the same experience everywhere. I love this example. I take this example to heart. I want to have the same experience with you online as I do in person. If I walk into a coffee shop and because I engage with them on social and they're very witty and they're funny and they're always chatting about all things coffee and the jargon is fun and we're having a good time, and I walk in and the barista behind the counter is not very kind, is kind of rude, or is rushing me through the process, doesn't have the answer to, different types of coffees and things that are available, there's a disconnect with that engagement. So we want to make sure that there's a consistency throughout. So whatever you offer online, you're going to offer in person. It's going to exist everywhere and throughout other platforms. And finally, we're going to want that compassion, show that you care. Oftentimes, people are more vocal online when they're unhappy about something than when they're happy about something. And that's unfortunate. It would be great if more people would be singing your praises when you're doing everything really well. But the reality is, most of the time, they will just come to life when things are not going as planned. So we want to be able to show compassion because we're not exactly sure what the other person is up against or why they're feeling a certain way. And we need to understand that they want to feel heard, they want to feel valued, and not just be given a robotic response. We don't want you to just, use a chat GPT response that's just, I'm sorry, deal with it, call us. Well, it just can't be that direct. You want to offer compassion. We're going to walk through some of those examples today. It's actually going to be the kind of workshop today where we do a lot more of that. I'm going to ask you to engage and give me some feedback on how you would respond and how you would deal with these scenarios. So, keeping all of this in mind, the three C's of great service, we're going to talk about response time and balancing your professionalism with your personality. So, when earlier we talked about, the timeline, and most of you said you try to do it as quickly as possible. Some of you said 1 to 2 days. Honestly, 1 to 2 days in the world of social media is long. I think you need to take it with what makes sense in your industry if it allows it. If you're a staff member who works within certain hours, I understand that you're not going to respond to people within that time frame, but I would encourage some type of automated response built into the tool that says, hey, we're not available between these hours. You'll be our priority in the morning. We will respond to you at our first chance when we get back to the office. But really, we want to aim under 1 hour on platforms like Threads or X, which is like the live conversation, and Facebook, where it moves fast. It moves really, really fast. And especially in a local community, Facebook is the kind of tool that 1 minute you've made the post, you have a few likes, and then if something is um, really capturing your audience's attention and it's getting some traction, you really want to be available to handle all of that. So I know we live in a world where we like to have those notifications off, but depending on your role, depending on the conversations that you're having online, it really is best practice to get these notifications so that you can handle things in a timely manner. Set clear expectations with responses, like I just mentioned, so you can go in and you can have that where it automatically responds with your time. I have some clients who have setups where no matter what, when they get something in their inbox, it automatically shoots a message. Hey, we're so happy to hear from you. Please note that we, check this periodically. We check between these hours, or you'll hear from us between a certain time frame. Setting expectations is super helpful, and it allows for people to kind of breathe. There's someone on the other end who has a question, a comment, a concern, and just knowing that, okay, I'm going to be handled in 24 hours, or I'll hear by tomorrow morning. That is super helpful, and it avoids, people taking this, especially when we're talking about like direct messages. If we can handle that in the inbox before a message gets out into, the main feed where we can't handle it or we're not available to handle it, all of these things are really helpful in kind of setting ourselves up for a better customer service experience, and also managing the dialogue that's happening outside, especially again in different worlds. There are ups and downs. Sometimes everything is great and everything is going well, but perfect example is this weekend. A lot of conversations about tariffs and people having opinions about that and posting things, and businesses sharing things. Their feeds are blowing up. Like, you need to be available and responsive to these things. You open these cans of worms, you need to be somewhere to have this dialogue. So that's important. And of course, we're going to use that brand voice, but stay customer focused. So, yes, we want to make sure that, we're staying in tune and we're staying in line with who we are. But at the end of the day, we still have to uphold this client experience and this customer service. So in the group chat right now, how many of you have an actual process, or you've done training on your customer service experience within the organization or your business? Does your team know what is expected of you for customer experience? Do you have expectations from your leaders, how you are to interact from a customer service perspective with comments and things that are coming in, or you just kind of freestyling this and figuring it out along the way? I'd love to see in the chat. Seeing no direction from leadership. I have made system, but it's a little bit freestyled. So a little bit of maybe both is happening, freestyling some direction. I think it also comes down to a lot of your values, right? It comes down to how you feel how you connect with your business and what's going on, and you're making a lot of the decisions on the fly. If you weren't didn't want to be treated this way, you wouldn't treat someone else this way. But the reality is as you're growing a business, you're bringing in other people, you can't control that. You don't know what your team is saying or how they're acknowledging others if you don't take the time to make that a priority. For years, I've been operating our agency, and we have lots of creatives, lots of wonderful people that we work with. Doesn't mean that all of my creatives have the best customer service skills or they're the best at communicating with our clients. So within the team, there are only a few people that I trust to have the right conversations with our clients where they're going to be customer focused, acknowledge the challenges, acknowledge their concerns in the right way. So it is important to have that process in place. And again, when I talk about processes within organizations, business, it doesn't have to be big manuals and big textbooks of how to handle your customers. It could be a sheet of information. If this happens, here's how I'd want you to handle it. Here are some examples of things that have happened in the past. Here's how I would approach this. If I wasn't around, I couldn't do it. Here's how I would like for you to do it. Having these little things available to you and your team can make a huge difference. And it also gives them the confidence to be able to handle things on their own, knowing that you would take care of it in a specific way. I'm just going to take a quick look at the comments. I think like a customer. That's great. I volunteer to take free info sessions like this to educate myself. Perfect. That's the thing, right? You have to go out there and make a little bit of a plan so that you can execute it. And be consistent in how you're going to deliver all of that. So this is all super important. And I encourage you, if you don't have some type of client experience manual or worksheet, whether you're in an organization, you're working for yourself, wherever you are, it's important to take a moment to acknowledge that process and how that will look like for you. So how are we handling negative feedback and crisis responses? So how many of you have had to deal with negative comments in your feed for your organization? Tell me in the comments who has experienced this actually terrifying moment, because it can be really scary to get these comments in your feed. It can be a little bit paralyzing if you're not prepared for it. So I'd love to know if you've experienced it. How did it make you feel? Yes, on Facebook, Google reviews. Google reviews is like, people, we can manage so much, but there's a lot of interesting stuff that happens in Google reviews sometimes. But we're going to talk a little bit about how you can handle that in the best ways. Occasional reviews on Google are not always positive. 4.8 is still really good. There's not everyone's always going to be 100% happy. That happens. That's okay. It's how we respond honestly to it that really makes a difference in how people view those comments and those concerns. We sponsor a drag bingo super prejudice reactions. I can imagine that there's a lot of interactions that just don't make it a very positive experience. So this, I think, will help. This section will help just kind of get you in the right frame of mind, because I think fundamentally we know these are the answers, but often we're like, I'm just not going to do this because I can't handle it right now. My brain can't process it. I don't want to deal with it, but we need to deal with it, and let's go through that right now. So the first and foremost is don't delete. You cannot start deleting comments. That is just adding fuel to the fire. There's nothing a disgruntled customer or a troll, because they also exist on the internet, loves more than you deleting a response and then calling you out for deleting their response. Instead, we need to interact and engage with it. And there's a way to do that. That doesn't have to go deeper. It's not about opening a further can of worms. It's acknowledging the issue publicly is the first step, and we want to make that happen. So if somebody has a comment or a concern, we're going to acknowledge it, and we're going to make sure that they know that we've seen it. The next step would be to take it offline for a detailed resolution. So we're not going to do the resolution online. We don't need to have, especially if somebody's very upset and disgruntled, we don't need to do all of that in the feed. Asking someone, acknowledging that we're sorry you're having a bad experience. We would love to talk to you about this. Please send us a message or an email. Here's our email. Put all of your contact information and offer to do this offline together. Now, don't pretend online that you're going to make it all better, and then behind behind the scenes where you think, oh, it's not so public here, throw down the hammer. Again, customer experience still important. We still want to have the same experience we would online as we would offline. However, there are some things that we don't need to, put all out into the public sphere. And especially if you have staff or additional members of your team managing and handling these things, it can be a little bit terrifying to just let somebody do that. And then they're afraid of the answers that they're giving. So we really want to have this conversation offline. And again, when we're talking about having this sheet of customer experience, having a crisis response, how do we handle a crisis if it does happen? How do we handle if someone is disgruntled online and is trying to raise hell, so to speak? How do we do that? How do we handle it? Here's how we're going to do this step by step. So having that in place is super helpful. And then you're going to want to follow up to show your accountability. So, even I've seen this from some big brands, if you write a comment, hey, we would love to have this conversation offline, connect with us, and then they like it or they say, I will. And then if you never hear from them, go back to that feed and that comment. Hey, we never heard from you. We really wanted to make sure that you were happy and we want to resolve this. Please connect with us if there's anything that we can do to give you a more positive experience with us. So don't be afraid to follow up and show that you care and that you actually do want to handle the situation. So common mistakes to avoid is ignoring the complaints. So not deleting, but just leaving them. That happens a lot, just letting people go. Now, there's a difference between when we're talking customer service and we're talking about people who are just saying terrible things online and engaging in a way that's not healthy or productive for staff or healthy for staff members or team members. There's a difference. Right now we're staying pretty clear on customer service experience. So I want you to focus on that. It would be a different conversation if we want to talk about a little bit of a higher level crisis, like you said, for your event where people are just a little bit uninterested in the event that's happening, a little bit prejudiced in how that is being delivered and in their comments. So again, there's a time and place for both. But when it comes to customer service, ignoring a complaint like, hey, I went to your store today, ordered a pizza, and I got home and it wasn't cooked and it was gross and we hated it, just ignoring that isn't going to help you. Again, people see comments. I know a lot of people who never post a thing on the internet, but they love going to the comment section. You might know somebody like that. They go right to the comment section. They see something crazy happen, excuse me, and they jump to the comment section because they love what people have to say. So you don't want to ignore it. You want to make sure that you're acknowledging it because people are looking. Over apologizing without action. So earlier, like I said, if you're going to say online, hey, we're so sorry, we want to do better and we want to fix this for you, and then somebody emails you, hey, thank you for acknowledging me, and then you do nothing about it, also not great. And then responding emotionally. This probably happens a little bit more on the business front. If it's your business, we are very involved in our day-to-day work. So when we get comments that attack maybe how we value our customers, and if people question the energy that we put into the work that we do, and they question our if we're professional, and they are saying things that really feel like they're attacking us, we may respond emotionally, and that doesn't help. That usually spirals into something not really great. So we want to avoid that. And again, that's why having this go-to document, this place where you can say, okay, here's how I would handle this if this happened to me. And it just gives you're kind of just, sit around the table with your team and just kind of have a scenario session where you talk about all the different things that could happen, all the terrible things that could happen, and make a list of them and then come up with a resolution for it. And then you have it and you're ready to go. And that just alleviates a lot of pressure from anyone who has to handle these interactions online. Engagement as a trust and loyalty builder. So actually engaging with people through just asking for feedback, getting that information back from people. And a lot of people stay away from it because they're a little bit afraid of what could come of it. But it actually often is a really great way to learn about how your clients are experiencing your product or your service, your organization, and we shouldn't be afraid for that engagement. So it's not just about fixing problems when we think about customer service. That's often where we go. It's about being proactive and making sure we're staying ahead of things. So you can ask open-ended questions on your feed. You can share user-generated content, which we've done before or we've talked about before in previous sessions. So using posts and comments and different engagements that people have shared with you and reshare that content to your feed, and create polls and interactive posts with your community. So if you're thinking of doing something differently, or if you've changed something in your shop or your organization and you want to put out a poll, how has this experience been for you? How have you liked engaging with us this way? How has the team been? Sending an email after an experience. All of these things help bring the engagement and trust to a whole other level, and it allows you to, again, stay ahead of it and be proactive with all of it. There's a keynote at the bottom there just about measuring success. We've done this, we've talked about metrics and things before, again, in another session, but you can easily manage all of this through these tools, and you're able to see, Meta now offers all these options for polls and interactive posts. This is all so available to you. And again, it's staying ahead of the curve with all of these experiences people are having you. So again, customer service shouldn't be an afterthought. It should always be something that we think of beforehand. And because we have these tools today, years ago, we didn't have the opportunity to collect this data as easily as we do today. If you wanted to collect information, you might have to send a note card, or you'd have to call your customers to get some feedback. But today, with all the electronic tools that we have, let's get ahead of it. Let's find out what people are thinking. Often, my clients are looking for the next step. Like, I don't know if I should be doing this or if I should be going that way. It's like, just ask them. Ask them. That is part of the client experience and the customer service experience. So don't be afraid to start the conversation. And again, you're far less likely to get super negative feedback in a situation, but you might get the kind of feedback that's constructive. And it's just like, hey, this was really good, but it would have been nice if this would have happened. And it's just like this little note that you can take and you could say, okay, if we do this a little bit better, how many other people will experience a better experience with us if we do it this way? So I think there's a tremendous amount of value with that. So right now, what I'd love to do is run through some scenarios together, and I'm going to walk you through. First of all, I want to run through the scenarios. Love to hear in the chat what you would do. And then we're going to share in the scenario how we should be responding and how that should work. So our first scenario is a delayed order complaint. So that happens. Delays are natural. These things happen sometimes. So this could be the comment that you would have somewhere on a feed. I placed my order 2 weeks ago. I still haven't received it. This is ridiculous. What kind of business are you running? Hashtag bad service. So maybe you've received something like this before, but let me know in the comments, how would you acknowledge their frustration while also providing a helpful response? What would be your way of handling this? Again, get into the chat. I need a sip over here. I'm also battling a little bit of a cold. I know you're all thinking over there. You know how you would be handling it. I know you're thinking about it. How would you handle this? How would you, when you get this message, it's also just so jarring when you see these things. You're hoping people aren't going to take to customer service or to social media to handle these things. You'd like it to be in an email, but it's not always the case. Sometimes it's a very public thing. So I'm sorry this happened to you. Let me contact you directly to get this problem fixed. Comment apologizing, ask them to email to look into this further. Amazing. How do we move forward? This is not typical for our service. Yes, I love that when we acknowledge this is unusual for us. In the grand scheme of things, I want to also acknowledge that 2 weeks having received an order, not that crazy when you're not Amazon Prime shipping direct. So let's be easy on the people when we place orders online and we don't get them the next moment. But yes, if this is unusual for you, yes, just acknowledging, and I'm going to go through that list here. Empathy and acknowledgement of what's going on. So sorry that happened. Thank you for letting us know. This is important for us to to have a clear next step on how that will happen, DM us, update us for a status. We'll update you with a status, and a solution that has an estimated time of resolution. So don't leave them hanging on that front. You want to be able to let them know that, hey, we're going to look into this. You're going to hear back from us within 24 hours and kind of give them a play-by-play of how that would look. And again, this is where this document or this go-to worksheet that you have on how you're going to experience these things helps, because you would already have the answers to most of this. If your policy is, if the client, if we can't find the shipment within 24 hours, we're going to dispatch a new order and you'll get this new order sent out in a new tracking number. That can be part of the resolution and the comment that you make back. So again, people not getting their orders, not getting their product, a frustrating thing, not an uncommon thing. Be prepared for it. Scenario 2 is the product or service didn't meet the expectations. So they're just disappointed. So I tried your new product or service, and I have to say, I'm really disappointed. It didn't work as well as expected. And honestly, I feel like it was a waste of my money. And this could also lend to experience. I know there's organizations here. So if you're running a museum and someone has come in and, put a review or made a comment on the feed like, oh, we actually went to this last weekend, not worth the money, not actually a whole lot of fun. I've seen some of my clients experience this where, people have come in and had those comments. So how would you validate their concern here and offer support without sounding defensive? Because of course our natural reaction is going to be, what do you mean? Like we put our guard up here. So what would be your reaction to this? And especially if most of the time, if all your reviews are really are really good, and most people have a really great experience, and you get something like this on your feed, as a business owner or a leader in your organization, wouldn't you wonder, well, what happened? What experience? Who was working that day? Who handled this situation? Is this an internal thing that we have to fix? Did somebody have a bad experience with one of our staff members? Did somebody just not have a good day and overlook these things? Were we short-staffed? Could that be the issue? There's a lot being said in comments like this, and we have to reflect internally to see where these issues may have come to be. And we can't be afraid of that. So I'm sorry you feel that way. Could we do this to make better for your visit next time? We deal with this in the restaurants. Of course you would. The restaurants, I imagine, would happen. We apologize. We pass it on to the team. It's absolutely so important to pass the information on to a team. We need to know when these things happen so that we can acknowledge how to deal with it in future. So apologize for their experience without taking the full blame unless it's necessary, because sometimes people, have comments about their experience and it's not exactly aligned with everything exactly. So I think it's just really opening up the dialogue of, my goodness, okay, what happened? Let's talk about it. We're going to want to offer a solution, so a replacement, a refund. We're going to troubleshoot the issue and move again to a private message to further assist them if needed. Again, every scenario is different. When someone doesn't have a great experience, we don't necessarily need to be saying how we're going to resolve this online, but we want to make sure that if anyone else lands in the feed in that commentary, they're going to look at this and say, okay, well, they handled it. I'm sure they're going to handle us. Or, hey, yeah, and people know now. People know when people make kind of crazy comments that are just not aligned with a person's business or brand or organization's brand. So people will sometimes look past it, but those comments and how you engage on those feeds will be super great at really reinforcing that you're making an effort in your client experience. So that's really great. We're going to go into a third scenario here. The angry customer making a scene. Worst experience ever. You guys are the worst. You lost a customer for life. Everyone be aware. Beware. This company is a scam. I love the word scam in comments where they don't belong, but this is a scam. It's not often a scam. It's just an unhappy person. So how would you respond? Would you do it publicly or privately? How do you de-escalate it without further inflaming the solution, the situation? So this is probably not someone who's going to be happy to see your note and be willing to hear you out. So how would you respond to something like this? This always seems extreme to me, but I would probably have the same approach. It is so extreme. And I always try to put myself in the shoe of the other person. Why was this such a the kind of experience that just manifested this response? Like, why did they get there? And the truth is, we're never going to understand everyone. We are opening ourselves up to plenty of commentary online. Some it makes sense, some of it, is warranted, some of it is not. But again, it is about just acknowledging what's going on, a calm and professional tone. We don't want to give them the same energy and reaction they are giving us. We want to ask for details to understand the issue. Can you please elaborate? Because we're really not clear here on what's going on, right? With that comment. If we go back to it, worst experience ever, you lost a customer, beware, it's a scam. Like, what happened? What led you to be here? Ask for more details to understand the issue. And of course, offer to resolve it privately while showing concern publicly. Again, most of this is all the same, and it is a little bit just touch and go with every type of situation that happens because everything is unique. Every tone is unique. Every person is unique in how they deliver these messages. So these are just great scenarios to walk through together just to kind of see how you might be experiencing those differently. I have a fourth one you probably didn't expect, the unexpected shout out. So wow, just got the best customer service from this company. You guys are amazing. How many of you get these comments? Let's celebrate those for a moment. How many of you get really great comments in your feed and think to yourself, "Oh, good, like this is great. We got a great experience here." And how do you maximize this moment for your brand and the visibility here? What do you do for yourself when you get these types of comments? Yes, those are the comments you do love to see. But I'd love to know how you're capitalizing on these moments and taking this information that, people are having good experiences. How are you amplifying that comment and going the distance with it? Because there are things that you can do with this to get a little bit further. I should respond to more of these and thank them. Absolutely. Anytime, anyone who takes the time to comment, sure, a like is good, but a comment goes a long way. The moment someone has an interaction with a brand or a company or an organization, it automatically feels like you're heard and valued. I was on Threads the other day and I was just having a crazy conversation about plants. My comment, I just threw out a thread to the universe of like, nobody told me that if I took good care of my plants that I'd have to dust them. And it was just became this joke. Thousands of people were engaging with this thread. It was a lot of humor. And then Threads, like Meta Threads, made a humorous comment on that. And I'm in marketing. I work in these things all the time. Even for me, I was just like, that's cool that Threads responded to my comment. It is just really great when people have that interaction with you on a positive note. Plus, it helps with your post. The more engagement, the more interaction there is, the more organically the tool that you're on is going to propel that message and that post forward. So please take a moment to engage in all of those. It's super, super helpful to do that. I'm just going to look quickly through the notes. I think I'm seeing pretty much all the same. Um, yeah, entering people in a draw for their positive shout out. That's a great idea. I make sure to tell my employees that I've got the positive feedback. This makes them very happy. Of course, we love to know that we're doing a good job. Life is already hard enough. Hearing good things, we don't hear them often enough. And if you can do that for anyone on your team, it's super impactful. So again, a warm and appreciative reply. We love that. Share and reshare the post. If it's just a comment on something, you could take a screenshot and use that as a single post in your feed. Take a moment to hold on to that comment and reshare it. It's important to celebrate your wins too. And an invitation to keep engaging. We're so glad you loved it. Anything else we can do for you? And then most of the time people are like, no, this has been amazing. It'll kind of rest there. But just having that engagement of the positive, we get so, again, lost in all the negative that happens online. Please take a moment to engage in all the good. So finally, I'm going to jump into this exercise to get you started, something that will allow you an opportunity to kind of assess where you're at. And you can either take screenshots or I'll get Meg the presentation. You can go grab that later. But number one, I would want you to rate your current customer service level through social media in these categories. So on a scale of 1 to 5, you would mark how each of one of these is being handled. So these are areas that are important. So the response time to customer inquiries and complaints, the friendliness and professionalism in your responses, the consistency in your brand voice and your tone, handling negative feedback constructively, proactively engaging with customers, not just responding. So, starting the conversation, encouraging and amplifying user generated content, and using tools and automation effectively without losing a human touch. So, just rate yourself on where you would fall within these categories. Again, I'm going to allow some time for some questions. So, I'm going to scroll through this, but you would take this and then head over to the reflections questions. So, what's your strongest area and where do you excel? So you're going to be able to see that with the numbers that you've allocated to each category. What areas do you struggle with the most? And then ask yourself why. Why are these the hardest part for you? And sometimes when we dig deeper, we know the answers and we know these things are happening, but when we take a moment to pause and actually reflect, it's very, very clear where the problem is and how we can address and fix it. Have you received direct feedback, positive or negative, on your social media or customer service? So think about those things. If a customer was unhappy with your response, what would they say? What would happen? And how do you currently measure customer service performance on social media? So based overall, you're just kind of having these little bit of reflections with the numbers that you have. And finally, with an action plan, you're going to choose one area. I'm like big on one thing at a time. Let's not try to overwhelm ourselves, especially if you're working on your own as someone who leads the way in social media for your organization, or a business owner who already has another million things to do. One area that you rate 3 or lower and set small improvement goals for the next month. So if you have a slow response time, set up notifications and aim for a response within 2 hours, something like that. Maybe if you have a lack of engagement, you start a weekly Ask Me Anything post or a Q&A session, maybe on a live. Just take action on one of those areas where you've scored a 3 or less, and that's going to proactively allow you to have a better engagement and customer service experience online. So overall today, I hope this was helpful. I'm looking at some other comments here. Meg, you're welcome to come back. How would you handle a complaint that threatens a lawsuit? I think it's the same approach. I think people like to throw around big words and they're scary things that make us feel like, how am I going to deal with this? But if I was to get a complaint where like, I'm going to sue you, or of any level from anyone, the first and foremost thing is, we're sorry again that you didn't have a great experience. We would really love to talk to you about this. If they're not engaging with you, first of all, most of the time these are empty threats, but if they're not engaging with you, that's fine. Again, having a proactive plan on the back end of what that might look like for you. Do you have a lawyer on hand? Maybe just have, look into your community, see who is available for these type of services. So you always do have a backup plan. In my experience, most people who threaten things like this are just trying to start a conversation that is beyond what is actually happening. So, but if someone is threatening a lawsuit, do not engage in that interaction in the feed. Do not give people that power there. Offer to talk about this offline. If they do not reach out to you, then there's really nothing you can do. You've tried your best, and that's all you can do. Just gonna scoot that off. Oh.
Thanks, Crane. I was going to say you have another comment here too. That they have some negative. Jessica, she just said that they have some negative complaints from days or weeks ago. Should she go back and reignite the convo, or leave the negative comment to be lost and move forward with prompt replies?
I would assess the comments and see where they're at. Maybe even just sending a proactive message in somebody's inbox. Hey, we're seeing this is going on. If it's kind of just settled, maybe the damage is already done, but you're going to have to assess each comment. There are some that I probably wouldn't reopen the box, especially if somebody was really disgruntled and they had like a really aggressive comment. My first question would be like, oh, why didn't we handle it in the first place? Let's not reopen that box. That would be my approach. If someone had a comment or concern about an experience, and they were kind of being reasonable in that delivery, I would probably reopen that conversation, because I would like to know if it's happened to them, it's probably happened to someone else, will probably happen again. So I would assess the importance of that scenario to you in your business. Is it something that you're worried is happening elsewhere? If so, then yes, I would definitely re-engage. If it feels like the kind of comment that came out of nowhere, or just somebody who was having a moment online, then I would probably not jump into that dialogue.
Perfect. And then we have another comment here from Haley.
Yeah.
She says, we have low engagement and we've been actively posting more engaging content, but we find our audience, who are mostly seniors and Gen Xers, are not responsive. What do you recommend?
Yeah, it's the tools and the engagement today is very different. If they're not engaging, it's likely that and I don't know what your stats are telling you, it's all in the data. So if the data is saying that you're still getting views and people are still participating in the content in some capacity, if you're sharing links and they're going to those links, then you're probably doing the right thing. Um, Typically, this generation is very responsive online. So they are very engaged. And so I'd be curious, like you're saying, the engagement is getting more engaging content, but is it you that thinks it's more engaging content, or is the audience telling you that it's engaging by engaging with it? So you might think you're creating things that are really getting people or should be getting people talking, but if they're not, then maybe it's still not, you still haven't addressed that yet. So I'd be curious to see. You can even respond to this and I can try to answer a little bit further, but is it you that feels that it's engaging and you're just not getting the commentary and the engagement? Or are you getting the engagement in ways that are not visual? Like when we don't see the likes and we don't see the shares and the follows, we're like, oh, it's just not happening. But really, I work with a finance company and we share a lot of content that people don't engage with. People don't want to talk about their finances online necessarily, but they will click on the links and they will go read the blog posts and they will go to the website and they will engage with the information that's shared there or the calculators that are there. So we don't get the social interaction, but we get the traffic that we're looking for. So it's just being aware of what your goals are and what makes sense for the experience that's there.
Yeah, I was going to say in a lot of cases, probably that engagement of people actually clicking links and going through to the services you provide is probably more of what you want to be leading into anyway, as opposed to conversation or the comments on a social media post. You want to be directing people to whatever it is that you're trying to advertise and get sales on. So
Yeah. Their goals can't always be attached to just engagement and likes, and that stuff is important, and there's a place in how that helps in our social and or our organic reach on social. But for the most part, at a small business level or local organization level, a lot of our goals are tied to actions, and those actions aren't exactly the most obvious online with, the traditional likes and engagement there.
exactly. And we have a comment here from Erica just on this topic about how, in her experience, engagement depends on the platforms that you're active on, which could play a part. So, for example, with the audience being seniors and Gen Xers, there's a likelihood that probably it's more on Facebook as opposed to Instagram or TikTok.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's so many tools and I always get flack when I push on going to Facebook because people just don't want to be on Facebook generally and we associate it with our personal feeds because your personal feed might be a little bit of a pardon my French, shit show. There's just like a lot of stuff happening because it's all kinds of different engagement there. Family members who are engaging in things and friends that you're just like, it's just you're not interested in seeing. And there's just like a lot happening that you might not love. And so a lot of people just don't particularly and love the tool. We're visual, so we like Instagram because it's, how we consume content is better there or might feel like it's better there. But Facebook has still one of the highest engagement rates, the data and the turnover and the engagement that we can get in that tool is still really great, and especially with that generation. I know several even clients who fall into this age bracket and they are on Instagram. They look at everything. They do not like anything. They do not comment on anything. They're like, I don't know how it works. I don't want to look like a fool. But they are all over Facebook for whatever reason it makes sense to them. So yes, the tools that you choose absolutely make a difference in your engagement. So addressing that is important. So good point there.
Perfect. And then we have a follow-up to the question about legality and someone threatening a lawsuit. Uh, let's say they have a threat in their threat about a lawsuit, they include a citation to a regulation. And does offering an apology expose you to liability?
I think at the end of the day, if the the thread or the comment is at this level, I would imagine, especially if we're citing specific regulations, then we have to consider involving someone who is in a position to make that kind of comment. I've had experiences where comments of such nature are happening, and I know that there's no weight to it. It's just like commentary. When we're getting specific like this, like is it exposing you to liability? I can't answer that question. A lawyer is going to have to answer that question for you. But if we're really concerned about it, we should have someone in our back pocket where we can address this. And if you're an organization, chances are you already have some type of representation somewhere. You probably don't use them on a very regular basis, but there's someone there to help you address these things. And so I think just acknowledging, thank you for your comment. We will look into this. Can you please connect with us? And I think there's a way to acknowledge that there's a comment there without you don't have to agree to anything. Like, we would love to get this in the hands of the right person who can address your concern. Please contact us here so we can get started. If they come back with another comment, oh, I'm citing this or whatever. Again, the best use of this comment and taking this into consideration is to get in the right hands. Please connect with us here or share with us how we can reach out to you. And again, if we keep putting the onus on that person, that's where we find out if they're actually going to take action or not.
Yeah, I know that can be a scary one when it comes to people threatening lawsuits. It tends to be one that happens on social media. I think a lot of times offhandedly people make legal comments.
Yeah, and
Uh,
Sherry's sending I feel like Sherry's sharing a link here to the Apology Act, apparently that allows for an apology without admitting liability. So again, resources there, but I think we're getting to this level again. There's there's a place to involve a person who has a level of education behind them and expertise to be able to navigate that.
you can just confirm that everything is above board and that you're in the clear.
Yeah, yeah. I should not be making legal decisions. Let's just leave it at that.
Worth it to do some research into things like this.
Absolutely. I want to thank everyone, though. It was a very engaging present. I appreciate everyone sharing in the comments. It makes it a lot more fun and hopefully helpful for you to engage.
Yeah, it was a fabulous group. Thank you so much. You did such a great job today. If anyone has any questions for Karine, this is your last chance. Otherwise, we're going to let you guys go because we're almost at 11 o'clock. Just a reminder that there is going to be a follow-up email. It will include Karine's presentation. It will include a recording of this session. And it will have a 2-minute survey. If you guys are able to answer that, it just lets us know that the content was what you were looking for, and if you have any ideas for other workshops that you're looking to do. It's helpful for us to make sure we're providing the right content, and it's helpful for Karine to make sure that she knows that she's touching on the right subjects. So if you guys are able to answer that, that would be much appreciated.
What great customer service of you, Meg.
Thank you. Thank you. We try. It's not through social media. I guess you could say Zoom might be social media in some capacity, but
No, absolutely.
well, thank you so much, Karine. Thank you everyone for attending. Again, look out for that email coming through, and let everyone get back to their days. It's nice and sunny outside for sure now. I can see only blue skies. So go out and enjoy some of the nice winter landscape. And we'll see you in a month for our final session in this series. Thank you again, Karine.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
All
Bye,
right.
everyone.
Bye, everyone.